If you have brown eyes, you probably think the story is already over. Brown is brown, boring, common, done. But put two brown-eyed people in the same light and look closer. One pair looks almost black, like the pupil keeps going forever. Another looks like warm coffee. Another flashes gold the second sunlight hits it. Another has a dark center with lighter streaks shooting outward, like the iris was drawn in layers. That difference is not random decoration. What you're seeing comes from pigment, depth, iris texture, and the way light moves through the front layers of the eye. Eye color is not one switch. It's shaped by multiple genes that influence how melanin is made, moved, stored, and arranged inside the iris. So here's what we're going to do. 7 visual brown eye types. Not medical labels. Not personality labels. A practical way to read what your eyes are actually showing. How dark the pigment looks. How warm the undertone is. How much light comes back. And whether the pattern is solid or breaks into rings and streaks. By the end, you'll have a much better way to recognize which type you're closest to. And type 6 is the one almost everyone gets wrong. Let's start with the type people often mistake for black. Type 1 is deep brown. The shade people sometimes call black. Here's the thing. Truly, black irises are not really a normal human category. What's actually happening is that the iris contains so much dark brown melanin that almost no light scatters back to the viewer. From across a room, the eye can look flat and bottomless, but move in close, under strong angled light, and you'll still see a brown edge, faint fibers, sometimes a warmer ring near the pupil. The strength is depth. Deep brown gives the eye a calm, steady, grounded look, and in bright environments, dense pigment may help cut down the harshness of reflected light. The trade-off is that detail hides easily. In photos, these eyes can disappear into shadow if the lighting is flat. People may read them as intense even when the face is completely relaxed. Type 2 is classic espresso brown. This is the shade most people picture when they hear brown eyes. Not almost black, not golden, not red, just rich coffee brown, deep enough to feel solid, but not so dense that every texture vanishes. The mechanism is still melanin, but the arrangement leaves more visible topography. In the right light, you'll catch tiny furrows, soft rings, darker spokes around the pupil. Those are not flaws. That's the iris surface showing through. The strength is balance. Espresso brown looks warm, familiar, and expressive without needing dramatic color shifts to be interesting. The trade-off is subtlety. Indoors, it can read as ordinary at first glance, but once direct light hits it, the structure walks forward. And that leads to the third type, where brown stops behaving like brown and starts pulling in a warmer copper signal. Type 3 is chestnut brown, the warm copper brown type. This is where brown stops looking neutral. In sunlight, you may see a reddish, cinnamon, or toasted copper undertone, especially near the pupil or along the outer iris fibers. The driver isn't one dramatic mutation that turns the eye red. It's usually a mix of pigment density, pigment tone, and how the iris reflects warm wavelengths back at the viewer. More yellow-red pigment relative to very dark brown pigment may be part of the look, but it's not a clean genetic stamp. The strength is warmth. Chestnut brown makes the eye look alive even when the overall color is still clearly brown. The trade-off is misreading. In dim indoor light, people will call it plain brown. In strong sun, they may think the eye looks irritated or unusually red. The color depends heavily on context. Type 4 is honey brown, sometimes called golden brown. This is the type that seems to switch on near a window. In dim light, medium brown. Then sunlight hits, and suddenly the eye lights up gold, amber, or soft caramel. Light matters more here. When there's less dense dark pigment blocking the front layers, more light gets in, scatters, and returns with a warmer glow. Think of sunlight passing through thin tea instead of dark coffee. The strength is responsiveness. Honey brown can look different from room to room, which makes it visually dynamic and almost alive. The trade-off is brightness sensitivity. Less dense pigment can let more light through. So some people with lighter brown eyes feel more glare or squint more in harsh white light. Not everyone notices it, but it's a reasonable pattern to watch. And here's where most people get the category completely wrong. They think a color-changing eye is actually changing. It's not. The eye is the same. The lighting is just revealing different layers. Type 5 is cool ash brown. This shade looks like brown with the warmth turned down. Gray-brown, slate-brown, soft taupe, especially in cloudy light. It doesn't flash gold like honey brown, and it doesn't carry the copper warmth of chestnut. The mechanism is still pigment and reflection, but the result is muted. Less warm reflection comes back to the viewer, so the eye feels quieter, cooler, almost cinematic. The strength is neutrality. Ash brown looks calm, elegant, and unusually soft on camera when the lighting is right. The trade-off is that cameras often miss it entirely. Without close, intentional light, this type flattens out, even though all the detail is still there. Next comes the rare-looking type that gets confused with hazel constantly. Type 6 is amber-like brown. This is the shade that gets mislabeled the fastest. People see gold, copper, or yellow warmth, and immediately call it hazel. But hazel is usually a visible mix: brown, green, and gold breaking into different zones at the same time. Amber-like brown is more uniform. It leans warm across the whole iris instead of looking like several colors competing for space. The mechanism is low visual darkness combined with a strong warm reflection. Enough brown pigment to stay in the brown family, but not enough deep darkness to pull the color toward espresso. The strength is distinctiveness. Amber-like brown stands out because the eye looks bright without ever turning blue or green. The trade-off is category confusion. People may argue with you about your eye color, because this type sits right on the border between brown, amber, and hazel. Type 7 is starburst brown. This one is not mainly a shade, it's a pattern. You'll see a darker brown ring around the pupil, then lighter streaks, spokes, or gold-brown rays moving outward. Sometimes the outer iris looks softer or cooler than the center. The driver is uneven pigment distribution. Melanin is not always spread like paint across a wall. It can cluster near the pupil, thin out toward the edge, or form visible fibers that catch light differently. The strength is visual focus. Contrast pulls attention. When the center of the eye is darker and the outside has lighter streaks, eye contact can feel sharper and more visually vivid. The trade-off is that this type almost never gets one clean label. Brown in one room, hazel in another, golden under sunlight, darker in photos. Family members may describe your eyes 3 different ways. And here's the part most people miss. You may not fit only one type. You might have espresso depth with a chestnut undertone, honey brown with a starburst center, ash brown that warms up in direct sunlight. Brown eyes are layered, not stamped. So instead of asking, "What color are my eyes?" the better question is, "What does light reveal when I look closer?" Here's a simple way to actually read your own brown eye type. Don't judge it from one selfie, one bathroom mirror, or one harsh flash? Brown eyes need context. Stand near a window in soft daylight. Then compare that with normal indoor light and one shaded setting. You're not looking for the prettiest version. You're looking for the pattern that keeps showing up. Then ask yourself 4 questions. How dark is the base color? Does it lean warm, cool, or neutral? Does light bring out gold, copper, or gray? And is the pigment mostly smooth? Or does it break into rings, spokes, and streaks? Those 4 answers tell you more than any one-word label on a form. One important limit. Eye color does not diagnose your health, your personality, your intelligence, or your ancestry by itself. And if your eye color changes suddenly, or you notice pain, vision changes, a new spot, or a strange ring, don't treat that as a fun color shift. That's when an eye care professional matters. But for most people, brown eyes are not boring at all. They're pigment meeting light, depth meeting texture, biology turning a familiar color into something deeply personal. So which type looks closest to yours? Deep brown, espresso, chestnut, honey, ash, amber-like, or starburst? Drop it in the comments. I read everyone. And if you want more science behind the features you see in the mirror every day, stay with the channel.